In the dead of night, driven mad by homework, furious, I'd take to social media to vent. We tried sitting in the bedroom, then we tried the living room. Even the balcony couldn't help. Laughing to myself, this homework is utterly impossible to finish. In the comments below, WeChat friends are laughing hysterically. Classmates are empathizing. But only Liu Ruoyan's comment feels out of place. Why not come find me to do it together? I saw the comment, and my whole body froze. With finals approaching, I am buried in review work and drowning in assignments. I'm losing my mind. Angrily, I post a picture of a packet of snail noodles. Still not enough space. I move from the bedroom to the living room. Then I move to the balcony. But it's still not enough. I feel utterly down. My heart is full of rage. I pull out my phone and start furiously typing away. Sometimes the heavens really do like to joke with us. We tried sitting in the bedroom, then we tried the living room. Even the balcony couldn't help. Laughing to myself, this homework is utterly impossible to finish. To truly capture the sense of disparity I was feeling, I split my post into 2 parts. To emphasize the emotional roller coaster, I expanded on the message even more and checked again. Once I finished posting, I went to Taobao and cleared my shopping cart. I sent a carnival tip to a female streamer. Finally, some of my frustration, like that of UG's, was released. I set an alarm and collapsed into bed. Finally, on the weekend, I could sleep in peace. But the next morning, I was rudely awakened by my friend. I had to admit, when was I going to make a move on Liu Ruoyan's icy heart? I got up early, still groggy from sleep, and now it was worse than ever. What on earth is happening? My brother was staring at me intensely. There was no breakfast in his hands. I couldn't be bothered to explain much. I just walked past him and headed to the bathroom to freshen up. When I came out, he suddenly blocked my way. I didn't have time to stop. I nearly knocked him over. Now I was fully awake. He pushed the takeaway he ordered right in front of me. His eyes were gleaming with gossip. "Come on, spill it." Just now, in the bathroom, he kept muttering to himself. I finally understood what was going on. Liu Ruoyan was too proud. She looks down on me. How could I possibly be with her? I opened the Xiaolongbao and slowly responded. Then why did she post such an ambiguous comment? I paused for a moment, my fingers frozen. My brother handed me his phone. He set the breakfast down for me. He started scrolling through the screen. There were dozens of mutual friends' posts on the moments. Finally, amidst a burst of laughter, he found Liu Ruoyan's message. Why not come find me to cool off? I couldn't help but wonder. At that time, sending such a message could indeed stir up some wild thoughts. His niece had posted as well. I gathered my thoughts. But simply put, this car was never going to start anyway. Especially since Liu Ruoyan only ever reads sage books. A misunderstanding, nothing more. My brother's expression was beyond words. I was just as speechless. At least my appetite was still intact. Apart from my brother, everyone in my moments understood the situation perfectly. No one asked me whether I had gotten involved with Liu Ruoyan, so I didn't feel the need to explain. As the assignment deadline loomed, I finally managed to send the completed document to Zhu when the stone in my heart was lifted and the madness stopped. Deleted my moments. But what I never expected was, when I returned to school, I had become a public figure. Somehow, Liu Ruoyan and I were rarely mentioned together. I have no idea who it was, but they took the first half of my post and paired it with Liu Ruoyan's comment. Then they posted it to the confession wall, asking about our so-called relationship. Seriously, these people must be incredibly bored. They really have nothing better to do. With popcorn in hand, they've labeled me as the ultimate player with one foot into boats. Now everyone is investigating. Who exactly is Fang Yuan from the film and TV directing department? Liu Ruoyan is the president of the student union. She's the vice president of the literature club, and also the leader of the street dance society. As for the first two positions, they highlight her aloof and unapproachable persona, but the last one creates an interesting contrast. Liu Ruoyan is also a passionate girl, But when it comes to street dance, it's just that she's beautiful. She got the most votes in the school flower election. Very few people in the whole school don't know who she is. Plus, she's been racking up awards left and right. Her status as a rich second generation has made her the object of desire for many boys. And now, with my presence, I've completely become the proverbial spoiler. Although I don't quite understand why everyone would treat Liu Ruoyan like garbage. They misunderstood. I posted a comment, but it was quickly drowned out. Family, I found Fang Yuan's photo. Come quick, look! Within half a day, under the confession wall comments, someone posted a photo of me from military training. I rarely take pictures. They must have found it on the school's official account. My brows instantly furrowed. I thought to myself, if the storm passes by the afternoon, I wouldn't make a big deal out of it. The truth is, something that was originally so simple. I don't know who stirred the pot from behind. At just 20 years old, I was subjected to online bullying for 2 whole days. Someone dug up footage of me in the broadcasting studio during my first year of high school, when I boldly confessed to Liu Ruoyan, only to be ruthlessly rejected on a rainy night. Then there were rumors that I had pressured the principal and had my father give all the scholarship money to Liu Ruoyan. Others were left empty-handed. Some even said they wouldn't dare to attend the same school as the young lady, fearing I might send my bodyguards to throw them in a sack and dump them in the Yellow River. One thing after another piled up, truth and lies blending together, and they slapped the label of arrogance and bullying on me. By the 3rd day, I couldn't take it anymore. I entered the confession wall's chat box, and I fired back without hesitation. You guys must be descendants of Archimedes, the way you argue so well. My anger surged to the point where I could barely control it. My fingers moved faster than ever before. If you're so eager to get to know me, then come meet me in person. Stop hiding like some coward, and open your eyes. Take a good look at my moments. What I post is crazy ranting literature. You're so into gossip. Why don't you go ask Liu Ruoyan if she loves me so much her brain rusted? Or maybe your comprehension skills just suck now. Stop bothering me, you brats. Thanks, but no thanks to the uncivilized ones. Finished typing furiously. My anger started to subside a little. What happened after that? I'm not sure. In the afternoon, I straight up raised my leg and cornered Liu Ruoyan against the wall after her class. Is this fun? I glared at her with a deadly look. People around us started to stare. Liu Ruoyan was wearing a white dress, her eyes bright and sharp, just like before. Liu Ruoyan had always been fierce. Back then, I was young and naive. I repeatedly made the mistake of provoking her. Now, after all these years, I thought things would fade with time. But it turns out Scorpios really hold grudges. I was truly angry. It just so happened to be after class. Many people walked by. They wanted to stick around and watch the drama, but Liu Ruoyan stopped them with just one glance. What's the matter? She asked, as if she had the right to. Sorry, I wasn't at school the past few days. Liu Ruoyan stepped back a little, gazing at me with a deep, calculating look. Because of our height difference, her gaze carried a condescending air. I was fed up with her. That cold, robotic demeanor of hers. Liu Ruoyan used to like you. I admit I was wrong, but rest assured, I'm not interested in chasing after you anymore. And I don't want to be tied to you in any way. So please, go clarify this right now. I laid the draft out completely. Liu Ruoyan furrowed her brow. What's there to clarify? My anger surged even higher. I wanted to retort, but my voice came out weak. I added, there's nothing wrong with that comment. I remember in high school, whenever you came across a difficult question, you'd come to me for help. Maybe you thought your expertise could support me. But this is not the past anymore. It's you who made them misunderstand. I interrupted her, pulling out my phone and holding it up to her face. Liu Ruoyan stared at my face, momentarily lost. Maybe it had been a long time since she had seen me lose my temper. When she saw the screen, her pupils barely perceptible, searching for a solution. She slowly spoke a few words. "I'll handle it." My stiff body relaxed. We stood in silence for a moment. I snatched my phone and turned to walk away. But then her wrist suddenly grabbed mine. Fang Yuan's pulse was so hot. I could feel it through my own skin. Liu Ruoyan's voice was deep. "Do the words you said back then still count?" Her strength was ancient and carried an unyielding stubbornness. I suddenly recalled the sweet words I said when I was chasing after Liu Ruoyan. The promises I made to him. Back then, I would open my wallet and warm him with it. Determined to chase him to the ends of the earth, I told him I would always like him, until I couldn't love him anymore. And if one day he wanted to be with me, I would run to him without hesitation. So now, he wanted to test whether those words still held true. Well, let's just disappoint him then. Everything changes. Now, with this burden of a body, how could I possibly run? I touched my chest, where my heart raced and pulsed with emotions. I gave a bitter laugh. "Are you pitying me?" Liu Ruoyan only returned home when she came to university. She wasn't wealthy during high school. Even a shirt could get so washed out that it turned white. I just stared at him, not struggling. The desire in his eyes was intense. He immediately released my hand. He seemed like he wanted to say something. But then my brother showed up. He pulled me behind him, protecting me like a cub. I said, "Liu, the great goddess." In broad daylight, under the clear sky, "What exactly do you want to do to Fang Yuan?" "Sorry, Liu Ruoyan," my brother said, his voice low and imposing. He yanked me aside and shoved past her, pulling me away. Along the way, he lectured me several times, scolding me for being such a fool. I thought to myself, Liu Ruoyan's heart must be made of stone. You worked so hard to get into this school for him, and yet, he's not moved by it. Is there a rule that says if someone's nice to you, you have to fall for them? It's not some moral blackmail. I chuckled lightly, analyzing. Besides, without that drive, I wouldn't have even made it into such a good school. My brother was extremely dissatisfied. He retorted, "Bullshit. Liu Ruoyan, aside from being a bit prettier, what exactly makes her worthy of all this from you? If you really think about it, the reasons for liking someone can't seem to be based on just one thing. The reasons are hard to explain." I thought for a moment and casually said, "Maybe it's because I don't want a life full of regrets. After all, having lived a sheltered life, the most rebellious thing I've ever done is openly chase after Liu Ruoyan." Liu Ruoyan directly recorded a video to clarify. She explained that someone had intentionally caused confusion. In fact, there were 3 more parts to my original post. This homework is simply impossible to finish. And her comment was in response to that. She responded on her moments. No need to overanalyze. In high school, I often helped him with tutoring. Does anyone have a problem with that? The video lasted for half a minute and ended with a question. I stared at those words, unable to snap out of it for a long time. Liu Ruoyan kept mentioning high school recently. My face was filled with confusion. This strange feeling lasted into the next day. Liu Ruoyan caught my teammates' words and responded with just 2 simple words, yet they sent a wave crashing over me. They stirred up a storm in my heart. That earlier sentence of mine, "You're so gossip-driven. Just ask Liu Ruoyan if she loves me," to the point that her brains rusted. I had said that in a fit of anger, because I was so furious that I wasn't thinking clearly. I just typed it in a random outburst. I never imagined it would be singled out and responded to. Nor did I think Liu Ruoyan would actually reply. He used to be known as the heartless figure of Shenzhen one high school, with a cold, aloof demeanor as if he'd live alone forever. Whenever you spoke to him, half of his words were about studying. Now it felt like the dream gourd had finally opened up. I was startled. I quickly turned off my phone. A few days later, my brother said, "It's all out now." The puppet master behind the rumors had been exposed. When I heard the name, my first reaction was pure shock. My second reaction, however, was much calmer. Ming Huan was my deskmate in high school. He had secretly been in love with Liu Ruoyan. I only found out about this later. He was quiet and reserved. With a solitary personality, he worked hard and studied diligently. I was the first person to be his deskmate. Becoming friends with him wasn't an easy task, because he didn't really like to talk to others. Over time, no one in the class really spoke to him. It was my patience that eventually helped him open up. I warmed up the group, letting him slowly integrate with everyone. At first, I thought he just had autism, until I saw with my own eyes. He threw the birthday gift I gave him into the trash can. He cursed a few times, relieving some anger. Then he picked it up and put it on. The next time I saw him, I no longer felt the initial aversion. His eyes were gentle and smiling gently. In that moment, I finally understood. He also had a grudge against rich people. A two-faced person. I exposed him. He wasn't even surprised. He just picked up the paper from the floor, flicked off the invisible dust, lightly said Feng Yuan. So the rich aren't invincible after all. You and I are the same. We both have our problems. His eyes looked so innocent, yet sinister, as he shook the diagnosis report in his hand. Congenital heart disease. Won't live long, huh? That day, the wind was very strong. He stood there, like an old, blood-sucking demon from strange tales of Liao Jai, telling me to stay away from Liu Ruoyan, saying that Liu Ruoyan and he were from the same world. Now, after all this time, his little thoughts haven't changed. When I was called to the office by the counselor, Ning Huan was handing in his reflection report. Ning Huan, Feng Yuan's here. You should apologize to him properly, the counselor said, smiling cheerfully. I walked in, a smile tugging at the corner of my lips. I looked at Ning Huan, feigning surprise. Ning Huan, I didn't expect you'd still dislike me from high school all the way to now. Ning Huan's face instantly turned pale when he heard that. He opened his mouth, wanting to retort, but he was intimidated by the counselor's gaze. It was a look of disbelief. I never expected that a student of mine would have such low character. You should apologize right away. What are you waiting for? His voice was no longer gentle. Ning Huan looked up at me. His fists clenched, his eyes filled with hatred. In the end, he gritted his teeth and muttered, "Sorry." What? I asked. "Sorry," he said, this time loudly admitting his mistake. The other students in the office looked on curiously. It only took a few seconds. He suddenly flashed a bright smile and walked up beside me. Feng Yuan, we're at least classmates. Will you forgive me? I remained unfazed and brushed past him. Ning Huan, because of you, I've been left with a lot of shadows. The counselor paused as they were grading the reflection report. Their gaze shifted between us. It finally settled on Ning Huan. With a disappointed shake of the head, they wrote his name on the report and instructed the homeroom teacher to contact his parents. Ning Huan's eyes turned red. I'd always known. His mother's greatest hope was placed on him. Next, I'd probably be witnessing a good show. I smiled and walked up to him, leaning in close to his ear. You should accumulate some virtue. On the confession wall, all negative comments about me disappeared. Not only the communications college, but students from other colleges also knew about Ning Huan's reputation. During PE class, even the teachers hesitated when they saw him. Although I didn't want to admit it, he deserved to be excluded, whether in high school or in university. All of this was to be expected. The only surprise was Liu Ruoyan's attitude. He took the tactics I used on him in high school and applied them to me. While eating with him, I couldn't stop staring at his face, a face I could never tire of, lost in thought. That day, after leaving the office, Ning Huan said a lot to me. But I only heard one sentence, because many people had said the same thing to me before. You should know. You and Liu Ruoyan. Liu Ruoyan's application ended, and he moved from the old-style tenement building to a spacious flat. It was only after that I learned it. He was the illegitimate daughter of a famous local real estate tycoon. During high school, he hated those arrogant, lavish rich kids the most, those who squandered money like water. And the real estate tycoon's biological daughter was once someone who tried to insult him. At that time, he also couldn't stand me, the clingy follower. Liu Ruoyan, do you really like me? I smiled. This wasn't the first time I asked this question in the past week. To my surprise, his response was unexpectedly patient. His tone was serious, as if swearing an oath. The sadness in my eyes quickly passed, and all that was left was calm acceptance. After a long silence, I softly said, then, let's date, so that in April, this voice won't have any regrets. It was the first time Liu Ruoyan took my hand. His rough fingers gently brushed across my palm. I didn't notice the lifeline on my hand. I only knew Liu Ruoyan was not a fool when it came to emotions. She knew how to fulfill the responsibilities of a girlfriend. She wouldn't fall short in that regard either. Later, I found his search history on his browser, which made me reconsider. It turned out he had a studious, blockhead side. Liu Ruoyan, the little couple, was having a cold war. Not like you, so serious. Leaning on the library desk, I blinked at him. His book page was perfectly aligned, reading End of the Cold War. In reality, we weren't exactly in a Cold War. It was purely my own boredom, trying to add some spice to things. A little quarrel is good for the relationship, right? As dusk fell, the library gradually emptied. The sound of a pen scratching paper never stopped in my ears. Today, I specially agreed to stay with Liu Ruoyan to quietly help him finish the topic selection. As I watched the streetlights outside turn on, I propped my head up and watched him. Under the lights, his handsome face was as pale as if it had been airbrushed. The scent of lemon occasionally floated into my nose. Damn, it was so tempting. Are you hungry? He asked. I shook my head. Since high school, Liu Ruoyan had always had incredible self-discipline. During the big break, when the classroom was as noisy as a market, he could still finish an entire test paper with very few mistakes. It's the same now. I played with his fingers. He didn't blink once. I pouted. Leaning against the side, I played a match 3 game. I reached the top level, but couldn't unlock the next level. I had to put the phone down again. While others were still scribbling away, I sighed deeply. It was strange how quickly I let go. So quickly that it felt like we had never loved each other. Writing my madness was as easy as breathing for me. Liu Ruoyan gently. I had already thought of the next line. It's fine, sooner or later, someone will take the empty seat. I wish you happiness. I can't stop your happiness. He finally couldn't help but speak. A bit of jealousy? You're jealous too, huh? You and I are both concerned about each other. No, I'm fine. I just wanted to drug you when you were being distant. I smiled brightly, trying to stir up the glint in his eyes. But he wouldn't care. However, before I could stop, the ribbon was lightly pulled and fell off. Liu Ruoyan turned his head and looked at me, smiling provocatively. His eyes were bright, like dry tinder being lit by a spark. I only teased his eyebrows, but it was enough to tease me as well. I cursed inwardly, realizing this wasn't going to end well. His breath was heavy and tightening around me. My heart, which didn't match my head, was pounding wildly. Retreat was impossible, so I had to close my eyes. For a long time, the scene I had imagined didn't come. Liu Ruoyan flicked my forehead with his finger. His tone was teasing. What are you thinking about? Let's go, I'll take you to eat. In those few seconds, he had already packed up his things. It was D, my bro, who said I looked much better after being nourished by love. My complexion had definitely improved a lot, but the biggest reason was probably because I wasn't worried about the old path anymore. As long as the starting point was happiness, everything else didn't matter. And he even asked me how I've been recently. He raised an eyebrow. What did you say? Of course, that's what I said. He laughed heartily. But seeing my expression, he quickly reassured me. I was just joking. I won't tell Andy about you and Liu Ruoyan. My mom has always been against Liu Ruoyan. It wasn't just because of the difference in status. It was also because of my rebellious phase in high school. I made some poor choices in my pursuit of love, which led to 2 hospital visits. That made my condition worse. As the conversation continued, he frowned. So, for this birthday, you can't let Liu Ruoyan attend, can you? My mom wasn't home. I got the news that she was out for a business meeting. She was rarely home for long stretches. But on the day of my birthday, I ended up seeing him. In recent years, I hadn't invited many people to my birthday, but the event was still packed. It was lively enough that no one noticed my absence. Everyone was enjoying themselves. It was only because my good friend Lin Yunqi had insisted on organizing it. The agreed upon time had passed 10 minutes. But Liu Ruoyan still hadn't arrived. I checked the chat records. His last reply was half an hour ago. I started to worrying that something had happened to him. I rushed to the door, glancing around. The valet said he hadn't seen anyone. I could only call him. It was at this moment that I saw my mom's assistant, and behind him was Liu Ruoyan. I was filled with confusion. I immediately lifted the hem of my dress and walked over. A few minutes later, the assistant left. They sat face to face on the stone bench in the pavilion. As I arrived, I just happened to hear Liu Ruoyan's cool voice. Don't worry, Fan Yuan and I are already together. I froze in my steps. The impulse to rush in and protect her vanished in an instant. I let out a breath. I stood quietly in the corner behind them, listening. My mom wasn't as harsh as I imagined. Instead, she was all smiles. I know this is difficult for you, but Fan Yuan's health isn't good. In high school, she went to the hospital multiple times just to pursue you. I'm really heartbroken about it. Can you understand? I understand. Liu Ruoyan's voice was soft. They talked for a long time. The night grew darker, and I couldn't make out the emotions on Liu Ruoyan's face. All of their words reached my ears. The joy in my heart slowly faded away, inch by inch. At that time, I didn't understand. Why did Liu Ruoyan, who had always despised me, suddenly pursue me so openly? Now, all the answers are clear. Liu Ruoyan being with me was a transaction. All these years, what seemed like an ever-growing affection was actually born out of his guilt. It spread wildly through my chest. I couldn't say it was hard to bear. At least my steps away weren't in surrender. I finally got a girlfriend, but she was a bit too unruly. The second half, Liu Ruoyan slowly walked towards the light. As he entered the hall, many eyes lingered on him. He stepped towards me, and there was an unexpected turn. Been waiting long? It seemed he didn't plan to tell me anything. I met his eyes, so clear and bright. A voice inside me kept reminding me, there's nothing to be upset about. Finally, he's here. I just want to walk hand in hand with the one I love, under the moon together. So that's exactly what I did. We walked along the spring streets. The crescent moon hung high. Our shadows stretched towards the sky. Once again, it was midnight. Fireworks bloomed across the horizon. I hooked my arm around his neck. I greedily wanted more. It made me understand the difference between a gentle touch and a kiss. Liu Ruoyan's eyes deepened visibly. He pulled me into his arms. Passionately, he took over. After such a long time, I wrapped my arms around him. I murmured, Liu Ruoyan, for my next birthday, I want a sealed love letter. You have to remember. My words were swallowed by his lips. It seemed like he agreed. Back at school, Liu Ruoyan never mentioned the past. I also kept silent. I didn't expect him to love me, but at least I wanted to be happy. Liu Ruoyan was very capable. His cooking was great, his figure was perfect, and his looks were a sight to behold. The most important thing was that he knew how to play along with my golden words. For example, when I'm in a bad mood, I'd snuggle in his arms and joke. Sometimes I wish I were an octopus. Then I could slap 8 people at once. He would laugh and take my fingers, pressing one by one on his face, leaving 8 marks. His tone was helpless. Octopus, but in a smaller version. Well, it's still okay, I guess. The marks on his face looked quite funny. I couldn't help but laugh. In my youth, I met the best of peaks, setting the bar high. It's undeniable. I still feel my heart race when I'm near him, and that's good enough. One shouldn't be too greedy. Liu Ruoyan was always calm and reserved, never showing off. Whether in the past or now, I've never seen him lose his temper. I had imagined his violent side, but I never thought it would come so quickly. Sometimes just 1 minute can change a lot. It all happened during the New Year's Eve gala. As the leader of the Gujang department, I led my juniors on stage for a performance. The first two performances were by Liu Ruoyan's street dance club. She danced to one of my favorite songs. Everyone was watching the show. The dressing room was mostly empty. The sound of doors opening and closing didn't catch my attention. But when I saw Ning Huan, I couldn't help but jump in shock. It seemed like he had been waiting for me for a long time. The mirror reflected that face, carefully made up, with a smug smile. Shouldn't it be your turn to perform soon? I took it as him coming to provoke me out of dissatisfaction with his superior. Good dogs don't fall, I muttered. I shoved past him. He followed me silently, his steps light, like a ghost. Is it really that happy being with Liu Ruoyan? He said slowly. It's such a pity, as I've said before. Your love is just like a joke, a gust of wind and it'll scatter. Liu Ruoyan only pities you. Does he really like you? He paused. When I looked back at him, his smile no longer hid anything. Otherwise, why would he so easily agree to this exchange student deal? I froze, trying hard not to let my expression betray me. About the military order, Liu Ruoyan had never told me about it. Fang Yuan admitted. He never really thought you two had a future. I know! He never truly liked me from the start. That's none of your business. Stop meddling in things that aren't your concern. I walked past him without a second glance. He was frustrated, but didn't follow. But at the corner of the stairs, a girl in black blocked my way. Her phone screen flashed a QR code. Hey, handsome, add me on WeChat? Sorry, I have a girlfriend. No worries. 3 people can be even more fun. My expression grew colder. Her tone became more forceful. He's more handsome than you. Calm and composed, she didn't pretend. She yanked me over, taking advantage of my moment of weakness. Be a good boy and give me a little favor. She pressed close. I punched her in the nose. I ran toward the audience. She reacted quickly, grabbing my clothes in a frenzy, just as I screamed. She let go of me. I lost my balance and fell into the stairwell. Pain shot through every inch of my body. When the light hit me, it felt like my world came to an abrupt halt. I didn't know how long I was lying there. I woke up in the hospital. The sound of crying surged like a tidal wave. As soon as I sat up, my brother suddenly hugged me tightly. Tears soaked into the nape of my neck. Fang Yuan, you're awake. Do you know how scared I was? My head was spinning. It was a reflex. I reached out and patted her back. Why are you crying? I'm fine, aren't I? I knew my body best. How could you say you're fine after falling from such a high place? Lin Ying didn't say anything, but I could still hear the doctor's conversation outside. My body felt even weaker. All right, eat something quickly. And he told me to take good care of you. Lin Ying hurriedly bought chicken soup. I want to drink it myself. She interrupted me. Lie down properly. I'll feed you, she said distractedly. Lin Ying seemed to know me inside out. Immediately, I was clear about what I was thinking. She said Liu Ruoyan had hit someone. However, she still maintained some semblance of rationality. It was merely ruled as self-defense. Otherwise, she would have lost her reputation. The reason she didn't come to the hospital today was that there were too many matters waiting for her at school. I suddenly remembered what Yin Huan had said that night. Whether it was a provocation or not, it was still a fact. I really did delay Liu Ruoyan. He had been obsessed with her since high school. If he missed this opportunity, he would probably regret it deeply. I would regret it too, because I was an indirect accomplice. Liu Ruoyan came with a sense of defeat. I didn't know when it started to rain, but it was tapping steadily against the window. Even through the curtain, a sense of melancholy could be felt. Thank you, Liu Ruoyan. He stood there for a moment, and I smiled at him. Thank you for fulfilling my wish. No matter the reason. Either way, thank you. As for whether there was a reply, let's not even bother with formalities. He was clearly left helpless by my politeness. He took out a tissue and wiped the damp strands of hair from his forehead, sitting by the bed. Do you still feel uncomfortable anywhere? I shook my head. I pushed the thermos of soup toward him. Have some, Lin Ying said. Liu Ruoyan was often so busy she stayed up late. It was likely she hadn't eaten since rushing here in the rain. My gaze fell on his long, slender fingers and slowly moved up to his profile. A few droplets of water were still clinging to his cheekbones. I used my fingertip to help wipe them away. He almost choked. It was as if I was teasing him. I innocently blinked my eyes. He laughed. Behave, don't make trouble. I stopped moving. He ate quickly, and I didn't even realize it at first. The thermos was nearly empty. Lie down and rest for a bit. He stood up to adjust my pillow. I suddenly wrapped my arms around his neck, kissing his cheek. My lips brushed over his skin and moved to his Adam's apple. I held that position, not moving, my face buried in his neck and shoulder. Oh, the spot for exchanging names was hard to come by. You mustn't miss the chance. Liu Ruoyan's body stiffened. He spoke softly, Fang Yuan, about the name exchange. I want to reconsider. You're not going to do something silly like in those TV dramas, are you? I interrupted with a teasing tone, though I knew the chances were slim. If you do that, I'll lose all respect for you. There's no need for Liu Ruoyan to joke around with her own money for someone unrelated, especially when it's me. Liu Ruoyan said nothing further. The rain's patter seemed to amplify in the stillness. I didn't hold him for long before letting go. Perhaps Liu Ruoyan was tired. As we spoke, Liu Ruoyan seemed worn out. Recently, my eyelids had started to feel heavy. I shared the pillow with him. He leaned against the edge of the bed. Before falling asleep, he was still comforting me. As the conversation drew to a close, Liu Ruoyan's voice softened. He told me if I returned to school, not to worry about the strange looks from others. I smiled. When the mirror is dirty, we don't mistake it for our own face being dirty. So when others say awful things, I don't think it's me that's awful. He had told me this in high school. Now, I was repeating it back to him. He teased me, saying I had a good memory. My memory isn't that great, but the things he said to me, I can still engrave in my mind. The moment Liu Ruoyan's eyelids fluttered shut, I slipped the custom perfume into his pocket. It doesn't matter if I leave Deep City, but you must remember, this year's spring had this particular scent. Please remember, we also went through a relationship that was, all things considered, quite good. If you don't remember, that's fine too. The year Liu Ruoyan went to England, I told her I was going to start treatment. I hoped for her success and triumphant return. The following year, I broke up with her in a small town in Santorini. After graduation, I began traveling the world. I lied to him. I didn't start treatment. I've always had to manage things since I was young. My physical condition wasn't great. I knew the final result from the very beginning. Still, I didn't want the rest of my days to be nothing but the sterile white walls of a hospital and an oxygen mask. Even if my heart was shattered, like a balloon about to burst, I still wanted to climb mountains and make pilgrimages. I wanted to see the autumn waters stretch to the horizon, to watch the clouds swirling in the sea of sky. On the 5th day in Greece, my phone accidentally fell into the water. Liu Ruoyan was busy over there. The time difference was only a 2-hour gap. Our chats had noticeably dwindled. The desire to share had vanished. I chose to think that he, too, needed to move forward. Maybe it wasn't long after, but the day he returned to China, he was holding another boy's hand, and that was fine too. On the day, we rented a car to go to the shipwreck bay in Zakynthos. The weather was beautiful. The only bad news was that due to landslide risks, the beach wouldn't be open to tourists during the summer. We could only admire the cliffs from a distance, looking at the old iron ship rusted by the deep blue sea. They would quietly lie in my camera. And my initial goal was to fill the memory of my camera, to travel the world alone. Everything was going according to plan. I never expected an accident. A girl asked for your new contact information. Should I call the guest house owner? It came through on my smartwatch. He described what the girl looked like, with just these few details. I knew exactly who it was, even though I'd seen them through the screen many times. When that person appeared, dressed in formal attire, my heart still skipped a beat. Liu Ruoyan had become more beautiful. The girl from my youth had now turned into a pride of the heavens. While I, long past my prime, instinctively lowered my hat's brim, trying to hide my gaunt, unrecognizable face. I avoided her gaze. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her polished leather shoes. Then she handed me a bouquet of flowers. She smiled gently. What are you hiding from? I haven't seen you in so long. Where have I seen you? We hadn't spoken in ages. The video calls had become exceedingly rare. I lowered my eyes silent. He gently embraced me. Had enough of playing around? I'll take you home. The moment he appeared, I immediately imagined an argument unfolding. Maybe he had come because of the inexplicable breakup. Now he was telling me to go home. His tone was soft, without a hint of anger. I didn't understand what my mother had given her to make her so obedient and compliant. I examined the bouquet in my hands. What kind of flower was this? Climbing iceberg. English rose. Finally, I wasn't just seeing it through a screen. Liu Ruoyan joked. Pretending in full dress wasn't to miss out on me. He decided to go with me to the seaside town of Lesbos. We stayed there for several days. Every time the evening breeze swept by, walking through the narrow alley filled with bougainvillea, it gave a sense of tranquility and ease. But Liu Ruoyan was still very busy. Grandfathers wearing green submariner watches were playing chess in the alley. He was off to one side, handling business matters. He was teased, being told he had just changed his working location. Liu Ruoyan wasn't great with words, but she could always, in the midst of light rain and a gentle breeze, smooth out even the sharpest of problems. The next day, he seemed a bit more relaxed. He also slipped into a more leisurely state. On the surface, he showed no signs of change, but every night, he would be handling urgent matters. In the past few days, his sleep had been less than 5 hours. Liu Ruoyan, you don't have to stay with me. I can manage on my own. His phone kept ringing non-stop. If this keeps up, something will go wrong. I couldn't help but reply. He gently patted my head. Don't worry, he said, pressing the power button to turn off his phone. You're more important. Liu Ruoyan was a serious person. He rarely spoke sweet words, but the tone in which he said that was surprisingly pleasant. I wasn't too cautious. I joked, are you worried I'll die on this trip? I wanted to comfort him, but he suddenly pressed his lips against mine. His breath was erratic. His movements were like music in the space between our gazes. Behave, don't say such ominous things. It was only then that I noticed. His hands had temporarily cut off blood flow. The joints were distinctly visible, and his embrace was so tight, I almost felt like my insides would be crushed. Well, I had come to terms with him, but not with this feeling of loss. Liu Ruoyan, haven't you always been clear? Isn't there a limit to deceiving oneself? When I'm not here, it might actually be a relief for you. The day we returned to China just happened to be Liu Ruoyan's birthday. I went with him back to our high school. It was the weekend. The only students left were in the senior year. We were wearing our uniforms. As soon as we stepped onto the school grounds, we were stopped by the security guard. He immediately looked at our proud hands. The electric baton tapped against the side, and the guard sternly asked about skipping class. Don't even mention dating. This security guard was notorious for his strictness. I immediately pushed Liu Ruoyan forward. "Uncle Zhang," I said cheerfully. "Look at you, talking like that. We just came to visit our alma mater. You must know him, right?" Liu Ruoyan, the top scorer of the 2017 college entrance exam. Uncle Zhang's eyes widened. He carefully looked Liu Ruoyan over. After just 2 seconds, he coldly declared, "I don't know Liu Ruoyan." He told me to wait obediently. Then he stepped forward to have a word with the guard. In a few moments, Uncle Zhang's face was full of smiles. "Kid, don't forget to invite me to your wedding." This old man sure knew how to take care of people. He's too skinny. He ate more and his mood changed so quickly. It was almost like Sun Wukong's transformation. I turned to Liu Ruoyan confused, and only then did I learn that Uncle Zhang was a cat lover. There were many ordinary students, and it was normal not to remember people after so long. But Liu Ruoyan was the sister of the house cat, meaning she had often helped him take care of his kittens before. In any case, we managed to blend in successfully. We arrived at the stage for the evening event. Here, I had confessed to Liu Ruoyan countless times. Told him I liked him over and over again. The moment the cake smeared across his nose, I asked him, "Liu Ruoyan, do you like me and what do you like about me?" "Everything about you." His tone was serious, but I wasn't sure how much of it was sincere. I didn't press the question any further. When making a wish, Liu Ruoyan closed his eyes for a long time before opening them. He seemed to have made every wish he could. I teased him. "Did you wish for next year? That the love letters you owe me will be delivered into my hands? I'll be waiting for them." When we didn't meet in the past, I used to act coquettish, hinting around many times. But over time, when I spoke too much, and Liu Ruoyan showed no real action, I grew tired. Dating was like multiplication. If one side is 0, then the result can only be 0. I never liked to force others too much. "But Liu Ruoyan, I gave you all the love letters in high school. Shouldn't you return the favor? Once a wish is spoken out loud, it won't come true." Liu Ruoyan's voice interrupted my thoughts. He wiped the cake off, smearing it across my nose. His voice was dry. "I'll make up for everything I owe you. Just wait a little longer. Be patient and wait a little longer." I didn't just want to look good. I wanted to dream beautifully too. But if he kept refusing to give, how long would I have to wait? I couldn't wait any longer. After returning to the country, I wasn't acclimated to the environment. I had to go to the hospital multiple times. The last time, I couldn't leave looking pristine. Liu Ruoyan's concern was not without reason. In the past few years of traveling, my immune system had been too weak. I had been sick many times, and no matter how nice my clothes looked, they couldn't mask my body as thin as a bamboo pole. This was the second time my heart disease triggered a sudden emergency. The stark white hospital bed, the blue and white patient gown, the constant hum of the defibrillator pressing against my chest. My body was as soft as a rotten yellow peach. I didn't actually want to stay awake, because the more awake I was, the more painful it became. I'm not someone who cries easily, but tears flowed silently, uncontrollably. "Should we remove the ring?" I vaguely heard the nurse's voice. I touched my fingertip, my index finger gently circling the silver ring. That was the ring Liu Ruoyan had personally put on my finger. I never liked anything too flashy. It fit perfectly, but the tears I had been holding back spilled out with my smile. "Liu Ruoyan, why are you so obedient? Doing whatever my mom tells you to do." I let out a small laugh and released my hand. The ring slid off, just perfectly catching on my ring finger. "Liu Ruoyan, are you going to marry me?" He gripped my hand tightly. "God, wipe my tears for me." His thumb traced my cheek. I could feel my face, wet from crying, as he gently caressed me. He softly smiled, his eyes red-rimmed. His voice was hoarse. "Do you want a traditional Chinese wedding or a Western one?" I looked at the birds chirping on the branches in the evening. Not just humans. Even birds like to test the edge of danger. I wanted to be a little greedy. I wanted both. He said okay and kissed my temple. He said he loved me. The glow of the sunset softened across the islands. I leaned weakly against his shoulder, but my heart was not empty. If there's a next life, then it will be your turn to chase me. In the 7th year after Fang Yuan's death, Liu Ruoyan was 35 years old. A Love Letter, the movie, was released. It swept through the streets and alleys. It won the 36th Golden Rooster Award for Best Picture. On Valentine's Day, the director was invited for an interview. 8 cameras were lined up facing the stage. A woman sat straight on the sofa. Her aura was calm and graceful. Her profile softly emerged under the flash of the lights. After the host's question, she smiled faintly. The script is adapted from a true story. Her deep voice resonated through the microphone, reaching every corner. Her solemn expression, captured in the camera's lens. The host hesitated, noticing the ring on her left ring finger. The LED screens were still showing promotional clips from the film. The words "May you see the snow on 1,000 mountains," and "the begonias still bloom," unaffected by the passage of time, slowly unfolded, echoing the quiet sorrow of the theme. As the girl's smiling face faded away, the stage transformed into a summer playground, filled with ice-cold soda. Laughter, tears, and roars of anger intertwined. The sea waves surged, cold and relentless. The monitor finally quieted, and the few love letters in the box still hadn't been delivered. But the wedding was grand. The host wiped away the tears at the corners of her eyes. She took a deep breath and smiled gently at the camera. In the end, she didn't follow the script. Director Liu's vivid portrayal of this youth film had brought countless tears. The vast difference in the identities of the young lovers and the school bullying resonated with so many. If you could go back to your youth, what would you say to your younger self? Be brave, don't hold back. Say you love him without hesitation. The camera clicked incessantly. The rising emotions nearly drowned out the sinking ones. Despite this, the host could still sense the mystery within him. He had watched the film twice. Each time, a surge of emotion rose in his chest. In the past, when he heard his lover miss this song, it hadn't had such a strong impact. Now he finally understood. That feeling of sorrow when someone crashed into your life, fills you up and then leaves. At this moment, he desperately wanted to confirm something. So urgently that he didn't even realize his voice was choking. In the movie, the love letters were never delivered. Did the female lead ever know that the male lead liked her? That silence. The sound of the camera seemed to subconsciously grow quieter. Liu Ruoyan's gaze fixed on the screen, locking onto the paused frame where the words "love letter" stood still. The hidden emotion swirled beneath his gaze. He didn't realize how dry his voice had become, or that his eyes had reddened. A love letter broadcasted after 10 years. Liu Ruoyan still hadn't married. Director Liu achieved his dream of fame and success, but remained a bachelor for life. In an epilogue, Liu Ruoyan spent the barren years of 2016, with only a few tasks left for him: to study, make money, and care for his terminally ill foster daughter. He was worldly and slick, always trying to keep things within his control. But during the plum rain season of that year, at the age of 16, something changed. She held the boy's hand, bold and unrestrained, radiating with brilliance, free from any constraints. On some summer afternoon, she would sneak into the broadcasting studio, confidently delivering the love letter she'd pieced together from song lyrics. On a sweat-drenched sports field, she would wave a banner and cheer loudly. Even if the strange gazes of the crowd fell upon her, she would still smile and run to deliver water. At 15 or 16, love was often a fleeting passion, gone in the blink of an eye. Liu Ruoyan just thought his actions were nothing more than the typical teenage folly. He wasn't good with words, and rarely cared for the emotions of others. Even on that rainy night, he rejected her confession to her face. watching her joyful expression fade into the dusk. The next day, he still felt at ease with his decision. He knew how to keep his distance. It was rare for any boy to receive such a cold rejection. That night, his despair as he left under the umbrella was real. A few light words from him only brought back a sense of peace. He had overlooked the fact that nothing ever goes exactly as planned. The convenience store door swung open. Fang Yuan appeared, smiling brightly. He froze for a moment. When he asked if he could help with anything, he received no answer. He moved the supplies without a word. The drink was placed on the chair, its footrest tucked inside the fridge. He almost couldn't withstand the impact and fell down. He couldn't afford the responsibility. He turned around with a slight movement. In his hand, there was just enough ice-cold soda. Without hesitation, he pressed it against his face. "You're so good-looking, Liu Ruoyan." He wasn't afraid to blurt out sweet words, as if they came naturally. "I'm definitely going to chase after you, because I'm not bad-looking either." Liu Ruoyan was taken off guard by her sudden closeness. She was startled and stepped back. As the chair wobbled, she instinctively braced herself against the fridge door. The distance between them closed. Their warm breaths intertwined, constantly mingling. Fang Yuan could see the flush on her face, the redness creeping up from her neck, the bare self in front of her. "Liu Ruoyan, your gaze ... it feels like you're about to devour me." A voice broke the moment. Liu Ruoyan suddenly snapped back to reality. She carefully set him back down on the ground. Then they returned to the front desk. After that, wherever he went, Fang Yuan's voice could always be heard. He seemed to have endless energy. A girl nurtured by the lands far from home. She bounced around his workplace every day. Occasionally, she would throw in sweet words while playing with a ball. All her little thoughts were written on her shoulder pads. The handwriting was round, a bit awkward, yet endearing. "My 3 most intense heartbeats in life. One happened when the teacher called on me in class. The second was when I missed a step while descending the stairs. And the third when I met. The day you carried me on your back. I realized there's no such thing as eternal beauty, only the long-awaited bright sunshine. Liu Ruoyan, don't follow the shadows. Come with me." Through the paper, Liu Ruoyan could almost imagine Fang Yuan's playful face. Though he said it so childishly, he still carefully tucked the paper between the pages of his notebook. Yeah, let's go with him. At 17 or 18, one has so much say in matters of love. Back then, people at school said he was being kept by Fang Yuan. Liu Ruoyan didn't care at all. The first time she felt so defeated was on Fang Yuan's birthday. He invited everyone in the class to celebrate with him. Shencheng First High was an elite school. People like him, struggling to make ends meet, were few and far between. The gift he had bought with a month's worth of part-time savings. Yet amidst the pile of designer brands, it seemed insignificant. That night, Fang Yuan was dressed particularly handsomely. Normally, he dressed casually. But that couldn't hide the fact that he was a pampered, favored young man. His fingers almost bled from tearing at the wrapping paper. But he managed to stay composed. With a blank expression, he handed over the gift. "Happy birthday!" Fang Yuan smiled at her. She pulled her through the crowd of laughter and voices, and gently reminded her not to mind. "Eat whatever you want." Liu Ruoyan's gaze followed her movements. She was busy attending to the guests tonight. Her manners were polite and formal, but soon in the shared familiarity, she dropped the formalities. The appearance of a young girl was enough to attract everyone's attention. That girl patted Fang Yuan's head. Fang Yuan didn't mind. In fact, she even laughed and playfully messed around with her. People around them whispered. That girl had been friends with Fang Yuan since she was a child. She had just returned from abroad, but in the end, she wasn't a match for her. That night, he rarely found himself thinking this way. He threw himself even deeper into his books. He despised his half-sister. She had chosen to live as an illegitimate child. She was taken back by her wealthy mother, only to have a chance to stand on the same level as him. Every year on Fang Yuan's birthday, He would write a love letter. But every year, he never had the courage to send it. He longed for his waiting time to be just a little longer. He hoped that one day it would all come together perfectly. He worked tirelessly behind the scenes, silently giving, because he was afraid. He was especially cautious, until he yearned for freedom, not wanting to leave any regrets. In those years in Britain, Liu Ruoyan noted every place he visited. She secretly flew to the city where he was. But each time, due to work, she left after only staying for half a day. He always thought he was doing what was best for him, but forgot to show his true feelings. The withered branches couldn't wait for the summer to bloom. In the end, he couldn't wait for his Fang Yuan.